A mother's regret. I sacrificed my son's future, his dreams, and his trust, all for the sake of my brilliant daughter, who I believed would change the world, only to watch her throw it all away and lose both of them in the process. A mother's regret for sacrificing my son's future for my brilliant daughter, who now ruined her life. If you came for her, you better leave. That was the first thing my son said to me after 5 years. He spat the words out like my voice was poison. And before I could utter a syllable, he slammed the door in my face. I stood there, heart hammering against my ribs, in front of a house I hadn't even helped him buy, wondering when I'd lost him, or worse, if I'd ever truly had him at all. I have twins, Olivia and Ethan. They were born a minute apart on a cold, chaotic morning in Chicago. For years, I tried to treat them as one entity. Same love, same gifts, same bedtime stories. First, it worked. They shared toys, birthdays, even punishments. Two halves of a whole. But that all changed when Olivia turned 8. That year, her 3rd grade teacher called us into school. Olivia had solved an algebra problem that stumped even the high school's mathletes. I remember leaving that parent-teacher conference, one of the teachers pulling us aside saying, "That girl is going to change the world." I felt a surge of pride, a thrill and ecstasy, and also annoying fear. Fear that I wouldn't be enough, that I couldn't provide what Olivia needed. From then on, everything revolved around her. Advanced physics textbooks, coding camps, science Olympiads, specialized magnet school programs, scholarships that only ever covered part of the tuition. And there I was scrambling, working extra shifts, taking out small loans to cover the rest because she had to shine. Because if I didn't push her, who would? Ethan. Ethan didn't seem to mind at first. He was a quiet, gentle boy, obsessed with dinosaurs, always drawing intricate dragons, and would laugh himself silly watching Saturday morning cartoons. I'd hug him, tell him he was smart in his own way, but I didn't know how to motivate him. I didn't know what to do with a normal child. So I enrolled him in the same STEM workshops as Olivia. Maybe he just hasn't found his spark yet. I tell myself, maybe seeing his sister will ignite something. But every time he'd come out looking drained. He told me he hated those places, that he felt stupid, that he didn't understand any of it. I tell him it was because he wasn't trying, that if he applied himself like Olivia, he'd get it too. And so, without realizing it, I began to change. I'd nitpick his efforts more, downplay his small wins, and I found myself saying no to him with a casualness that haunts me to this day. One birthday, Olivia asked for a high-powered telescope. Ethan didn't ask for anything. I got him clothes. I don't even remember if I asked him what he wanted. I just figured clothes were practical. There was one particular incident I can't erase. We were in the kitchen. Ethan was 12. He asked for a new video game, and I told him I couldn't, that we'd spent a lot on Olivia's trip to the National Science Fair. He looked at me, his expression serious, and asked, "If I were like her, would you buy me stuff, too?" And I, stupid blind, replied, "If you were like her, I wouldn't have to hound you about studying all day." I saw something shatter in his eyes. It was the first time he didn't yell. He just lowered his head, went to his room, and shut his door with a quiet click that stung more than any shout. I didn't mean to be cruel, but I was. And without realizing it, I'd stopped seeing them as equals. That word equals weighed more heavily on me with each passing year, because they weren't. Not in how they thought or how they learned, or I can admit it now, in how much I believed they could achieve. Olivia soaked up knowledge like a sponge. At 13, she was discussing relativity with university professors, building complex 3D models for her projects, and winning awards in competitions where most participants were years older. Each of her achievements was a mental postcard I collected with fierce pride. Ethan wasn't like that. His drawings weren't technically brilliant, to be honest, but they were full of passion. He created detailed maps of imaginary worlds, wrote stories about monsters with deep feelings, and castles that crumbled from betrayal. He never got bad grades, but he didn't stand out either. He was average, cooperative. I really tried to push him towards something more substantial. I enrolled him in the same academic summer camps as his sister, hoping being around her drive would inspire him. He agreed without protest, but his face screamed frustration, boredom, and complete disinterest. One afternoon, leaving a recreational math workshop, he sat down on the curb, looked at me with an old weariness in his young eyes, and said, "Mom, please don't try to make me someone I'm not." That sentence pierced me, but instead of hugging him, of telling him I loved him for who he was, I replied, "The thing is, Ethan, you don't even know who you are yet. That's why I keep trying." And I kept enrolling him in activities he detested, buying him books he never opened, comparing him unintentionally until he just stopped sharing anything with me. One day, I found a hidden folder on his computer filled with stories he'd written. He hadn't shown them to me. I stumbled upon them. I read them and understood nothing. I didn't get his world, and I didn't make the effort to. And so, little by little, he became invisible to me. A son who didn't cause trouble, who did his own thing, who didn't shine but didn't bother me either. I remember a moment that still burns in my memory. We were at Barnes and Noble. Olivia, buzzing with excitement, was hunting for a book on quantum physics. Ethan brought me a graphic novel, his eyes hopeful, and said he wanted to learn to draw like that. I shut him down immediately, told him we weren't going to waste money on pricey comic books, and put it back on the shelf without a second thought. That night, Ethan ate dinner in silence, and for the first time didn't say goodnight before going to his room. He just left, and I sat on the sofa with Olivia to read her new book together. Later, I tried to make it up to him. I bought him a gift card to a department store, told him he could pick out whatever he wanted. He thanked me, his voice distanced, that he didn't really need clothes, but it was fine. It was fine. He always said that as if he didn't have the right to ask for more. As if all he could do was accept. And he accepted everything in silence. Even when it came to deciding his future. Because when Olivia was accepted into an Ivy League university, and I knew we couldn't possibly afford tuition for both of them, I made a decision. One that altered our lives forever. I'd always known this moment would come, the point where we could no longer pretend everything was equal, that we could give them both the same. And when it happened, it wasn't a sudden choice. It was a cold, mathematical, almost inevitable conclusion. Olivia was in at a top-tier private university, a name that meant not just prestige, but real opportunities, research grants, connections with international labs, a direct path to the future I'd always envisioned for her. Ethan, on the other hand, had applied to a state school, a more modest, realistic option. He never said he wanted anything else. He just did it as always, quietly, without apparent expectations. But looking at the numbers, the sheer cost, the reality of our finances, I understood there was no way to fund both paths. Not with our savings, not without drowning in debt. It was one or the other, or we dragged them both down. I remember the conversation with my husband, as if it were yesterday. We'll use their college savings accounts to pay for Olivia, I stated matter-of-factly. My husband looked at me, a mix of disbelief and anger in his eyes.
And Ethan?
He's resilient. He can start at community college, apply for financial aid. Why not Olivia? He challenged. Because Olivia has something Ethan doesn't, I replied. The words tumbling out before I could stop them. Olivia has a future. I said it. I believed it. And now the memory of it is a pain sharper than any punishment. He argued, he fought, said it was unfair, cruel, that we were sacrificing one child for the other. I told him that if he wasn't willing to do what was necessary, then maybe we weren't on the same page. If you don't support this, I said, my voice hard, we'll get a divorce. He didn't answer, just looked at me as if he no longer recognized the woman standing before him. And so, we did it. We took the money we'd saved since they were babies, painstakingly divided into two separate 529 accounts, one for each of them, and merged them into one for her. When we told Ethan, he didn't react at first. He just asked, "What about me?" I, trying to sound calm, told him we'd find another way, that it was temporary, that I trusted him, that I knew he could make it without as much help. Then why can't she apply for a loan? He asked, his voice quiet but firm. I had no answer. The conversation escalated into shouting. Ethan cried, said he'd always known he was less important, that he wasn't blind. He just hoped he was wrong. He said at least now he knew the truth. He called us the worst parents in the world, and left. He walked out with a backpack, didn't say where he was going, didn't ask for money, didn't ask for anything. He didn't come back. Days turned into weeks. I texted, called, left voicemails, nothing. Meanwhile, Olivia started college. She seemed ecstatic, her future bright and promising. And I told myself it was worth it. That someday Ethan would understand. That he'd see I did it for the greater good. That a sacrifice was necessary. But then everything began to crumble. That's the only word for it. As if everything we had built on Olivia, the future, the gamble, the sacrifice had been held together with pins. First, it was perfect. The first few weeks of college were exciting. She sent me pictures of the campus, her classes, new friends. She even called one night, bubbling over to tell us a professor had praised her in front of the whole lecture hall. I hung up, my chest swelling with pride, thinking it was worth it. But then the silence started. The calls became sporadic, then almost non-existent. She'd say she was busy, that everything was fine, that we shouldn't worry. Until one night we got a call from the university. Olivia hadn't shown up for 3 key midterms. She was on the verge of failing the semester. I couldn't believe it. I clung to the idea that something external was affecting her. I drove to her university town. I found her in her messy university-paid apartment littered with empty beer bottles, music blasting, and people I didn't recognize. Olivia greeted me with a plastered-on smile and unnaturally bright eyes.
Mom.
Hey, I'm fine. Just, living a little. Yes, I talked to her. I begged her. I reminded her of everything we had done for her. She told me she was fed up, that her whole life she'd been the perfect child, that she didn't want any more pressure, that she didn't owe anyone anything. I left there shaking. I went home and told my husband everything. He wasn't surprised. He just said, "You raised her for this." Despite everything, we continued to pay her expenses. The rent, the tuition. As if at some point she would wake up, realize what she was throwing away, and get back on track. But every month was the same. More missed classes, more parties, more excuses. And meanwhile, the money was drying up. We took out more loans, sold the second car, refinanced the house, all to support the prodigal daughter who no longer shone. One night, scrolling through Facebook, I saw a post. It was a picture of Ethan smiling, standing in front of a new house. His house. I froze. The post had dozens of comments. Congratulations, applause, pride. My son, the one I never considered brilliant, had built more for himself than I'd ever envisioned, all without her help. I needed to know more. I asked Denise. She gave me a vague location. I found out. I drove hours to his new town, knocked on his door, without a clue what I was going to say. When he opened it, it took me several seconds to recognize him. He was taller, more filled out with his father's eyes, but the softness was gone. "What are you doing here?" he said, his voice flat. "I just wanted to talk, see how you are." After 5 years, I tried to sound gentle. I told him about Olivia, how badly she was doing, how much we were struggling with her. He was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "Did you come for me or for her?" I didn't know what to say. And then he exploded. It was always about her. Even when she wasn't around, everything was still about Olivia. "Now you want me to save her. After everything you denied me." He threw me out, slammed the door in my face again. And I, still convinced I could fix it, went back to his father. Not because I thought it would be different, but because deep down I needed to cling to something, to any sliver of redemption, to a fantasy where my son, despite everything, still had some affection for his mother. My husband didn't want to come. He said we'd been humiliated enough, but I convinced him. I told him this time we would both talk, that Ethan would see us as a family, that he'd understand it wasn't a selfish request, but a desperate act. I packed a container of his favorite childhood chocolate chip cookies. I also brought a thermos of coffee, as if a simple gesture could undo years of pain. I don't know why I thought sweet memories could erase bitter scars. We knocked on the door. Seconds stretched into an eternity. And when he opened it, his expression was a mirror of the last time. Coldness, exhaustion, that hardened glint of someone who no longer wants anything to do with you. "You again, Ethan, please." I began. "We just want to talk," his father said. "You already talked. You already know everything. What more do you want?" He let us in, but it felt more like a concession to weariness than an invitation. We sat down. He remained standing. We talked, or at least we tried. We told him how Olivia was doing, that she dropped out of college, that she partied every night, that we didn't know how to help her, that we needed financial support just for a while, that he was successful now, that he could make a difference. I spoke with a lump in my throat, his father, with his knuckles white from clenching his fists. Ethan listened in silence, every word seeming to land like a physical blow, until he asked, almost whispering, "Why do you only come when you need something for her?" "It's not that," I said without thinking. "It's that you're her brother. And she was my sister when you denied me college." My husband tried to intervene to say the situation had overwhelmed us, that it wasn't that simple. But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. He stood up abruptly, slamming his open palm on the coffee table. "You know what? You don't change. You never will. Ethan, please just listen."
"No, you listen to me."
We fell silent. "Do you want to know how I paid for college? With 3 part-time jobs with student loans, I'm still paying off with countless sleepless nights because I had to study and work and figure out how to live on my own. And I did it not because you believed in me. I did it because I got tired of waiting for you to someday." Tears were streaming down my face, but it was useless. "Now that your golden girl is broken, you come crawling to see if the son you cast aside can pick up the pieces."
"Well, no."
"I'm not your mechanic. I'm not your savior. I'm not your tool for emotional redemption." He picked up his phone. "Get out or I'll call the police." "Ethan, we're just on the sidewalk. We're not in your house. We just want—"
"I'll call anyway." And he did.
And when the police arrived, they looked at us with pity. They kindly asked us to leave, saying we hadn't committed a crime, but we should avoid contact if he requested it. We drove home shattered. Not a word was spoken in the car. Hours later, everything exploded online. Ethan posted. Not a simple picture like before. This one was long, detailed, brutal. He told everything with dates, with anecdotes, with screenshots of old texts. What we said, what we did, what he'd felt for years. This is the story of how my parents sacrificed my future for a brilliant daughter who today can't even stand on her own 2 feet. And yet, they still expect me to save her. The post went viral. Strangers started commenting, sharing, insulting me. My sisters called me crying, asking how I could do that to Ethan. Cousins, uncles, old friends, all sending me messages filled with hate. Disgusting mother. I hope you end up alone. A favorite child isn't worth it if you lose the rest. And Olivia. Olivia read the post and laughed. Dramatic but well written, she said with a shrug. It's still just his version of things. My husband exploded. Enough, he yelled. I'm not going to keep supporting her. Either she leaves or I do. I tried to calm him down, but I couldn't. And you, he said, looking at me with a fury I'd never seen in him. If you keep choosing her, then you can leave with her. I was speechless. For the first time, I didn't know who to look at. My family was falling apart again. But this time there was no going back. Not with Ethan. I knew it from the moment he called the police, from the tone of his voice, from the way he didn't even say, Mom. That word no longer belonged to me. My husband and I drove home in silence. We didn't say anything in the car. We didn't even look at each other. It was like we had just left a funeral where we ourselves had been both the murderers and the victims. And in a way, we were. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room alone with my phone in hand, refreshing Ethan's post over and over. It wasn't just him writing anymore. Now it was his friends, his colleagues, people congratulating him on his bravery, sharing their own stories of emotional neglect, calling us monsters without a second thought. Someone commented, I hope those parents die knowing they ruined someone who could have been incredible. I don't know why, but I liked it. Maybe because I felt I deserved it. The next morning, Olivia came down to the kitchen as if nothing had happened. Disheveled, yawning, phone in her hand. What's for breakfast? I served her in silence. My husband didn't even look at her. When she saw our faces, she asked, What's going on now? I told her that her brother had made everything public, that everyone knew, that we had lost friends, that her uncles were furious, that the whole family had turned their backs on us. She laughed. So what? Do you expect me to feel guilty? He was always a sensitive kid. You guys let him get to you. My husband slammed his hand on the table. It was the first time he confronted her with that simmering rage. Do you think this is a game? Do you think we're going to keep going into debt for someone who doesn't even feel a shred of guilt? Then don't, she replied, shrugging. Nobody asked you to mortgage the house. That was your decision. I didn't say anything because, as horrible as it sounds, I couldn't stop thinking that she was right. It was me. I was the one who decided, I was the one who chose. I was the one who pushed her towards a throne she never asked for and didn't know how to occupy. That day, my husband told me he was done, that he didn't want to live with her anymore, that if I was going to defend her, I should leave with her. I didn't answer, not because I wanted to stay, but because I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. The house became a minefield. Olivia went out every night without giving any explanation. My husband barely ate, and I floated between the two of them, like a ghost without a grave. Not a mother to one, nor a wife to the other, just the gray figure that had condemned them all. A few days later, Olivia disappeared. She left no note, no message, no trace. At first, I worried, called her acquaintances, tried to track her phone, went to the bars she used to frequent, but nothing, just a brutal emptiness. She didn't come back, and deep down I felt relief. A dirty, guilty relief, but real, because her absence hurt less than her indifference. I locked myself in the house for weeks without seeing anyone, without speaking, just looking at old photos, replaying birthday video recordings, listening to Ethan's voice when he was still a child. Mom, look at my dragon. This one breathes real fire. And I, in the recording, answer without looking up from Olivia's science project. Later. Ethan, not now. Olivia is about to present her experiment. I rewound that part at least 30 times, and I cried. I cried like never before, because that later never came. I wanted to write to him just one more time. Not to ask for help. Not to talk about Olivia, just to tell him what I didn't know how to say in the years that mattered. That I loved him. That I always loved him, but that I didn't know how to show it. I typed out the message countless times, erased it just as many. Every word sounded hollow. Every phrase a betrayal. And deep down, I felt I had no right to disturb his peace now that he had finally built it without me. One night, I looked at myself in the mirror and said aloud, I was a bad mother and I knew it. Yes, I was. Not for loving Olivia more, but for not learning to love Ethan as he needed, for confusing intelligence with worth, for measuring my children's lives by the yardstick of success and not by that of affection. And now that I have neither of them, all I have left is this regret, this hole, this echo of unspoken words and denied hugs. So if loving one child to the detriment of the other is a sin, then I am a sinner. I am guilty. I am selfish. I am that mother that many judge, that few understand, and who will probably never receive forgiveness, and I accept it. But if you are reading this, Ethan, if for some reason you ever decide to read my words again, I just want you to know something. I don't want you to forgive me. I just want you to live happily. And if to achieve that you need to hate me forever, then do it. but life, please just live. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.